Alexander Harrington stood by the window of his office in the towering skyscraper of Harrington Enterprises, where he could see the bustling skyline of New York City. As the president of one of the largest corporations in the industry, Alexander lacked neither power nor success. However, behind his resounding victories in the business world, he felt that something was missing in his life, a void he could not explain. Throughout his years of collaboration with Marlowe Corp., a major partner of Harrington Enterprises, Alexander had inadvertently noticed Claire Donovan, the company's secretary. Claire was not only a beautiful woman, but also a remarkable figure in the workplace. She was intelligent, sharp, and incredibly talented, with a strong and determined work ethic that Alexander could not help but admire. Although they didn't often interact directly, Alexander had witnessed Claire handling work with excellence and decisiveness. She was an essential part of the important meetings between the two companies, always the one to address the most challenging issues swiftly and effectively. This earned her Alexander's admiration, not only for her professional abilities, but also for the dedication and responsibility she exhibited in everything she did. After several encounters and observing Claire at work, Alexander had repeatedly invited her to join the team at Harrington Enterprises, believing that with her talent and professionalism, she would find a better working environment and valuable growth opportunities. He promised her more favorable conditions, with a company that was always growing and at the top of the industry. However, each time he made the offer, Claire politely but firmly declined. She explained that she could not leave Marlowe Corp., though Alexander could sense that the refusal was not based on work or opportunity. Claire always cited personal reasons she did not wish to share, hoping Alexander would understand and respect her choice. Although Alexander did not know the exact reason for her refusal, he still respected her decision. Watching Claire walk away after each rejection, Alexander felt a sense of regret in his heart. He couldn't fully understand why she was so attached to Marlowe Corp., but that did not diminish the admiration he felt for her. With someone like Claire, Alexander knew that she not only worked with absolute dedication, but also possessed dignity and a kind heart. And it was these qualities that made her special in his eyes, not just as a capable secretary, but as a person of great value. That day, a gentle rain fell over the city, like a harbinger of the changes about to unfold in Claire Donovan's life. The raindrops fell steadily on the office window, creating a rhythmic patter, as if each drop was engraving unspoken thoughts into her heart. Claire stood by the window, her gaze drifting outside, but her mind was spinning with endless thoughts. Though she tried to push it away, she couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Alexander Harrington a few days ago. Even though she had politely and firmly declined his offer to join Harrington Enterprises, there was still a sense of hesitation inside her. She knew that Alexander had invited her not only because of her talent, but also because of his admiration and trust. However, the bond she had with Marlowe Corp., the company she had been with for so long, was too strong. She couldn't easily walk away. Charles Beaumont, the CEO of Marlowe, had always been the one to support her throughout the years. He had funded her education when she was a student, helped her during tough times with her family, and, more importantly, made her feel responsible for the company. He was the one who brought her into this job, and from that moment, Claire felt she had an obligation to stay, unable to give it up, even when greater opportunities beckoned. But this time, Charles had asked something she couldn't accept. In an important deal with Glacier Industries, a strategic partner of Marlowe, the company was struggling with negotiations and signing the contract. Charles requested that Claire use her personal relationship to persuade the director of Glacier Industries, not only with her professional skills, but also with her body and emotions. These words hit Claire like a punch to the face. She couldn't believe that someone she had always respected and been grateful to would ask her to sacrifice herself in this way. Throughout her years at Marlowe, she had given everything, bringing in many important contracts for the company, but she had never felt so degraded as she did at that moment. That evening, in her small room, Claire sat deep in thought on an old armchair, her mind in turmoil. She replayed every word Charles had said in the meeting. He had emphasized that if she refused his request, not only would this deal be lost, but Marlowe's position in the industry would be seriously affected. Those words weighed heavily on her. She knew that if she refused, it would not only affect the company, but also her family. She had worked. When she entered, Charles was sitting at his desk, carefully reviewing some documents. Seeing her, he looked up, his eyes filled with expectation. "Claire, have you thought carefully about what I said?" His voice was warm but filled with concern. Claire looked him straight in the eye, but the heaviness in her heart made it hard to say what she had decided. "I cannot follow your request, Charles. I'm sorry. I've given everything to Marlowe, but I can't sacrifice myself like that." Charles didn't seem surprised, but his eyes became colder, as if a protective shell was starting to form. "Do you understand that what I'm doing is for the benefit of the company? If we don't do this, we'll lose the contract, and everything will be severely affected." Claire lowered her head, unwilling to respond, but inside she was firmer than ever. "I understand, Charles, but I also understand that my value as a person cannot be sold cheaply. I'm sorry, but I cannot comply with that request." The atmosphere in the room suddenly became silent. Charles stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. "You've made your choice, and I respect your decision, Claire. But never forget that I've helped you a lot, and don't think everything will be easy after you leave Marlowe." His words struck Claire's heart like a blow. She stood up, unable to say another word. Her decision had been made, and it couldn't be changed. She couldn't continue working in an environment where her basic values were disregarded. As she walked out of Charles's office, Claire felt a heavy burden lifted from her shoulders. But she knew this was just the beginning of new challenges. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she had made her choice. She couldn't let the past control her future. Looking at the glass wall, Claire held her head high. She was walking out of Marlowe, where she had spent her youth building her career. In her heart, a thought flickered. Harrington Enterprises would be a new opportunity, a door opening to a different world, where she could truly live and work according to her values. Although she had firmly and politely declined Alexander Harrington's offer to join Harrington Enterprises, Claire still couldn't shake off the feeling of doubt. She knew that Alexander had invited her not only because of her talent, but also due to his genuine admiration for her. Yet, no matter how many enticing opportunities there were, she couldn't bring herself to leave Marlowe Corp., the company she had been loyal to for so many years. Charles Beaumont, the CEO of Marlowe, had helped her tremendously, and whenever she thought of him, Claire felt a deep sense of gratitude. He was the one who funded her tuition, helped her through financial difficulties, and supported her mother's treatment when she was still a student. Claire had always felt a duty to remain loyal to Marlowe, and because of that, even with new opportunities, she couldn't bring herself to leave. But this time, Charles had asked something she couldn't accept. In an important deal with Glacier Industries, a major partner of Marlowe, the company was struggling to close the contract. Charles asked Claire to use not only her professional skills, but also her body and emotions to persuade the director of Glacier Industries, essentially turning herself into a tool to secure the contract. Claire felt her heart tighten, choking with confusion. She couldn't believe that Charles would ask her to do something like this. She had dedicated herself to the company, bringing in many important contracts, but she had never felt so degraded. That evening, Claire sat in her small room, the old armchair being the only place where she could lay her burdens down, yet it seemed there was no way to escape the tormenting thoughts. She replayed her conversation with Charles, his words still echoing in her ears. He had said that if she refused, Marlowe would lose this contract, and that could affect the company's position in the industry. Claire knew that not only would the company suffer, but her family would also face serious consequences if she didn't comply with Charles's request. Although she had worked tirelessly, she couldn't allow herself to become a tool in someone else's hands. The values she had always cherished were now being weighed against the personal interests Charles was trying to impose. The next day, Claire decided to meet Charles to make her decision clear. When she entered Charles's office, he was sitting behind his desk, carefully reviewing some documents. When he saw her walk in, he looked up, his eyes filled. Claire stood tall, looking him straight in the eye. But inside, a heavy feeling overshadowed her. "I cannot comply with your request, Charles. I'm sorry. I've given everything to Marlowe, but I cannot sacrifice myself like that. Charles wasn't surprised, but his eyes grew colder, as if a protective shell was beginning to form. Do you understand that what I'm doing is for the benefit of the company? If we don't do this, we'll lose the contract, and everything will be seriously affected. She lowered her head slightly, but her heart was firmer than ever. I understand, but I also understand that my value as a person cannot be sold cheaply. I'm sorry, Charles. I cannot comply with that request. The room suddenly became silent, with only the ticking of the clock filling the space. Charles stared at her in silence, then sighed wearily. You've made your choice, and I respect that. But don't forget, I've helped you a lot. Don't think everything will be easy after you leave Marlowe. His words felt like a punch to Claire's heart, making her choke up. She stood up, unable to say another word. Her decision had been made, and nothing could change it. She couldn't continue working in an environment where her fundamental values were disregarded. After a long night of reflection, Claire Donovan sat by the window, the dim morning light filtering into the empty room. The rain had stopped falling, but she still felt the waves in her heart that never ceased. The decision to leave Marlowe Corp and walk away was the hardest thing she had ever done. Though she had no regrets, her heart was full of anxiety about the future. What she couldn't stop fearing were the consequences of her decision. How would Charles, the man who had helped her so much in the past, react to this betrayal? Would her change in direction provoke any kind of revenge that might affect her life? Claire knew she had no other choice. She had reached a crossroads in her life and could not turn back. She remembered the offer from Alexander Harrington, an opportunity she had previously turned down. Alexander was a powerful man, but it wasn't just his success in business that made Claire feel he was special. He was the one who understood the value of dedication, and he was also the only person who could offer her an ideal work environment. With a firm decision, Claire took out her phone and dialed Alexander. The phone rang. Hello, Claire. Alexander's voice came through the line, warm and welcoming. It's great to hear from you. Have you thought about my offer? Claire could feel the sincerity in Alexander's voice, but there was still hesitation in her heart. Alexander, I've decided to leave Marlowe. I've chosen a new path. I want to join Harrington Enterprises as you offered before. Finally, the words escaped Claire's lips. She felt a sense of relief, but there was also anxiety about what was to come. She couldn't shake off the thought of what Charles might do after hearing her decision. On the other end, Alexander continued to smile. Claire, I'm truly excited to hear this decision from you. You won't have to worry about anything. I'll create every opportunity for you to reach your full potential here at Harrington Enterprises. This will be a great opportunity for you. His words helped ease some of Claire's worries. She knew her decision hadn't been easy, but if there was any place where she could truly grow and work with peace of mind, it was Harrington Enterprises. Thank you, Alexander, Claire said, her voice softer. I'll join the company immediately. I'm ready to start a new journey. After the call, Claire quickly prepared for the next steps. Everything moved quickly. She handed over her remaining work at Marlowe, tidied up everything to ensure no loose ends were left behind. Her last days at Marlowe weren't easy, but she knew she couldn't go back. She had decided to step out of the shadow of the past and into a promising future. When Claire first walked into Harrington Enterprises, she was impressed by the luxurious and energetic atmosphere of the place. Everything exuded professionalism, modernity, and creativity. She was led to Alexander's office where she would begin a new journey, not just a job, but a major turning point in her life. Welcome to Harrington Enterprises, Claire, Alexander said as she entered the room. He stood up, smiling warmly. I'm so glad to see you here. You will be an important part of our team. Claire looked around, feeling that everything was new and part of her felt more at ease. She sat down, her gaze meeting Alexander's. Thank you for believing in me and giving me this opportunity. I will do my best. Alexander sat down across from her, his eyes filled with pride. I believe you will do great, Claire. You've proven your capabilities at Marlowe, and I know you will do wonderful things here. Aligned with her values and her dedication. At Harrington Enterprises, although Claire Donovan had become accustomed to the fast-paced and challenging work environment, she still felt like a newcomer. Each day she learned more not only about her job, but also about the complex relationships that existed within the company. Everything seemed perfect, but no one could escape the shadow of jealousy and hidden schemes. Eliza Cooper, Alexander Harrington's former secretary, was highly talented and had worked with Alexander for many years. Since Claire joined Harrington Enterprises, Eliza had felt threatened. The attention Alexander gave Claire was not only a recognition of her talent, but also a clear encouragement that Eliza felt she could never receive. Eliza's jealousy began to show. She could not bear to see Claire slowly gaining Alexander's attention and trust, and the workplace environment became more tense than ever. Every word from Eliza carried a sharp edge, often laced with sarcastic remarks and attempts to undermine Claire. "Claire, are you sure you understand this process?" Eliza frequently asked, with a smile that was hard to read. "The work here demands professionalism and high concentration, you know." Although these words seemed harmless, they were filled with doubt and provocation. Eliza tried everything she could to make Claire feel inadequate, unworthy of the trust Alexander had placed in her. Claire could see through these schemes but tried to remain calm and focused on her work. However, day by day, Claire sensed the growing tension in the company. Harrington Enterprises had taken on a major project with Glacier Industries, a huge opportunity that could solidify the company's position in the global market. However, during important meetings, Claire began to sense that something was wrong. She noticed a change in Eliza's behavior, and inaccurate information about the project's progress began to circulate. Claire decided to investigate and discovered a troubling truth. Eliza and Charles Beaumont, the CEO of Marlowe Corp., had secretly collaborated, selling confidential information from Harrington Enterprises to Marlowe, helping them secure the contract with Glacier Industries. Claire decided to expose the truth. She gathered all the necessary evidence and reported it to Alexander Harrington. In a tense meeting with Alexander, she presented everything she had uncovered. "Alexander, I don't want to say this, but I cannot stand by and watch the betrayal within the company," Claire said, her voice serious and resolute. "Eliza and Charles are working together, selling crucial information to Marlowe. They've sabotaged this opportunity for the company." Alexander was not surprised, but the anger in his eyes was unmistakable. "I suspected this, but I never imagined it would come from someone I trusted. We will act immediately." Once the truth was revealed, Eliza had no place at Harrington Enterprises. She was fired on the spot, and her actions of betrayal were made public to the entire company. This revelation was not only a shock to her, but also sparked outrage within the company. As for Marlowe, Charles Beaumont did not escape the consequences. Although his company secured the contract, the project Marlowe took on was riddled with serious issues. Claire, with her sharp intellect and resourcefulness, had recognized the hidden risks in the project early on. She decided to let Marlowe win, not because of their lack of caution, but to expose their dark plot and protect the long-term interests of Harrington Enterprises, upholding the principles she valued. As Claire sat in her office, looking out the window where the sunlight began to shine on the city, a part of her felt relief, but another part still pondered the future. She had overcome the greatest challenges, but it was clear that the road ahead would still be filled with obstacles. And Claire knew that no matter what, she would never give up on her belief in herself, in the company she worked for, and in the values she had chosen. Work with dedication and strength, his respect for her grew. Sometimes, during the quiet moments of the afternoon, when warm sunlight streamed into his office, the sight of Claire focused on her work or exchanging ideas with him stirred his heart. Claire, too, could not ignore the changes within herself. Though she had long kept a solid wall around her heart, she began to sense the difference in her relationship with Alexander. He was not just a leader, he was someone who had created a safe space for her, where she could share her worries, failures, and unspoken desires. She felt the sincerity in every word he spoke, the patience in the way he listened, and the unselfish care he showed. She had not easily opened her heart to anyone in a long time, but Alexander made her feel that she could trust him. And then, In the moments when they worked together, shared ideas, and sometimes even exchanged life stories, she gradually realized that something stronger than mere admiration was blossoming within her. A feeling had started to grow. One evening, after the company had just completed an important project, Alexander and Claire sat together in the office, where the warm yellow light bathed the space. Everyone else had left, but the two of them remained behind to wrap up the day's work. The atmosphere in the room was quiet, with only the steady ticking of the clock in the background. Alexander, usually confident in his work, appeared more thoughtful than usual. He looked at Claire, not with the eyes of a leader, but as a man confronting emotions he could no longer hide. "Claire," he began, his voice low and warm, as if the words were both difficult and necessary. "I've been thinking about this constantly lately." Claire looked up at him, a little surprised. "What's going on, Alexander?" she asked gently. He took a deep breath and continued, his voice soft yet full of emotion. "I think I've started to feel something special for you." In that moment, Claire felt a wave of warmth rise within her, as though all the walls she had built up over the years were beginning to melt away. Although Alexander's words took her by surprise, she also sensed the sincerity in every word. She smiled, her eyes lighting up with a happiness she had never known before. They looked at each other in silence, a deep connection without the need for words. Alexander had never imagined that one day he would find someone like Claire, someone who could bring him not only sincere love, but also